Hello everyone, my name is Blackwatch and welcome to another episode of How to Play. And in this week's episode we're going to be taking a look at Maroa Evans, also known as Clash. Controversial operator this week. There's lots of people that love her, probably a lot more that hate her. They either hate playing as her or they hate playing against her, but regardless of what it is, you've probably got quite a strong opinion about her. But we're going to learn how to play her a bit more effectively and just get the best out of her. So, Clash, as I said, is a dodgy operator, but she's a 3 armor, 1 speed on the defending side, and she's a member of the Grimsky Urban Tactical Response Unit. That's a made up unit, but it's the one that they've put her in alongside Maverick on the attacking side. But the actual real life CTU she's a member of is the SCO 19 unit within the Metropolitan Police Service. That's a counter-terrorism unit within the Met Police in London. So there you go. Unique Gadget is the CCE shield, that's the crowd control electro shield. This is a top to bottom full body shield, so it covers your front completely and parts of your sides. And what it does is stops all bullets, doesn't stop explosives but reduces explosive damage, doesn't stop melee. Melee will actually knock your shield out to the side for a second, which leaves you vulnerable to shots. But what it has that sort of helps you in that situation is its main ability, and that is to shock people. So you hold down the right trigger or the left click or whatever. I'm pretty sure it's trigger on PS4 as well. And what that does is it will slow the person that you're aiming at instantly, and every second it will deal one tick of 5 damage. So you're getting 5 damage per second. You have to wait a second before the first tick comes out, because otherwise someone could just spam it repeatedly and kill someone very quickly. But it's a decent little gadget. It was a lot stronger before because I had a very fast swap time. Now the swap time's quite slow, but it does its job well, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But her weapons, or actual firearms, are the P10C handgun. It's the same one that Warden has. It's alright, I wouldn't pick it. And then you've got the SPSMG9 machine pistol. This is based off the TMP, I believe. And it's not bad either. It's actually quite a good gun. The only thing that's holding it back is essentially just the fact that it has such a small magazine capacity. It can only hold 21 rounds, which is not very good, but it will do quite a lot of damage, so as long as you're accurate with it, it will do okay for you. It's not like the other machine pistols that fly totally off when you fire them. The recoil's harsh, but it's not unfairly harsh, it's not unusable, so definitely go with the SPSMG. Then she has impacts and barbed wire. Generally speaking, I would go for the impacts because they can help your team with making rotations and things like that. And when you're playing Clash, you're gonna want to be able to move cleanly between sites. And so sometimes the impact hole you make might not be big enough for you to walk, or if your teammates made it, at least you have the chance to open it slightly more so that you can fluidly move between sites. So as I mentioned, the shield ticks once per second for 5 damage and it slows them immediately. So essentially she is the crowd control operator. She's about slowing down pushes, she's about corralling enemy operators into positions that are going to be favourable for your team to take advantage and get kills, and she is about making sure that the push takes longer, because when you're moving slowly, you're vulnerable and you're more likely to back out. But don't think that you're invulnerable. You will get rushed down quite easily, and there are many things that counter you. So in terms of her strengths, good crowd control, the tick damage is decent. You will chip away at people slowly but surely with that 5 damage every second. It's a great team tool. It's good for setting up flanks for your roamers, it's good for setting up kills for anyone who's near you, and it's good for intel as well. It can stall people quite effectively, but obviously it has its limitations, which we'll go over. And she's good for intel gathering because you can put herself in positions that other people can't, and that a camera may not be able to gather intel from because it gets shot. Her weaknesses, unfortunately, the solo loadout just isn't good enough. When she's got the shield out, she's really in a bad position if she has to swap away, because if she has to swap in the face of the enemy, the likelihood is she's going to get gunned down very easily. And her weapon isn't the most reliable. Again, small small magazine capacity. You've only really got one chance to kill one person. You'll maybe get a second person, but you don't have a lot of ammo to work with there. Many counters, too many counters to be honest, in my opinion. She can be countered by shots from Kali's sniper rifle, which will knock the shield out of the way. Zofia's concussion grenades will do that as well. Capitao can set her on fire for full damage. Frag grenades will deal damage to her. Nomad, obviously air jabs, will knock her back. All these things are problematic and are pretty severe counters for her, and basically any flashbang, because unless she can predict where they're coming from after she's been flashed, they can just run around her and take her out quite easily. So Blitz is a bit scary for young Maroa. So a lot of counters. Another thing that's kind of difficult with her is the fact that she's very reliant on her team. If she doesn't have her team behind her, then she's going to struggle, because she can't do the damage as well as they can. So you really need to have a team that are willing to work with you, otherwise there's no point in bringing her. And without that team, she will struggle in fights. So things you need to think about, tips that will hopefully improve your play with her. Always be thinking about your exposed area. A split-second turn is enough to kill you, because people can get those shots on target. You are standing, you are not very mobile, so it's very easy to hit you if your back is exposed. So always think when you're looking, when you're trying to see where people are, is this worth turning? And if it's not, can I ask someone else to look for me? Can I do whatever to avoid having to expose my big fleshy bit to the enemy? Just be careful. Try not to get too close to the enemy if you are shocking them, because you can't back up faster than they can run at you once your shock runs out. I think you only get about 5 or 6 seconds worth of shocking on a single battery before it runs out and has to fully recharge again. So you've got to be quite economic with your use of the gadget. If you don't use it economically, you're going to be getting pressured very quickly. And as I say, as soon as they get up close to you, they can continuously melee you and take a couple of shots at you. You're really going to struggle to get out of that situation alive. So try to avoid it, keep them at the maximum range, and just plink away at them. Get your teammates to help you. And if you can get into cover safely to swap to your primary, then that's probably the right thing to do. Constantly talk to your teammates. Make sure you're communicating about the health status of people that you've shocked. You're dealing 5 damage per tick, and you'll know you've ticked when you hear an extra little sort of crunch in the electro field noise, and you'll see an arc of electricity hit the operator who's been shocked. So keep that in mind and try and sort of let people know if you've been shocking someone for a couple of minutes and they're really starting to take a lot of damage. Just say, you know, these guys are likely lower than you would expect them to be. And in turn, get your teammates to tell you if they've engaged someone, because if they have, there is the possibility that you can get a down or maybe even a kill on that person just by coming up and shocking them. It's always a possibility. But don't get too greedy if you have downed them, because when you down them, it's going to take an additional 4 shocks. That's almost an entire battery worth of shocks. Don't get yourself in a position where you're going to be out of batteries just to confirm a kill. It's better to have someone at 20 health, very vulnerable, or have them down and then just leave them, than it is to rush in and then get yourself killed because you're being bloodlusty. Constantly talk to your teammates, as I said, and use this little trick. You can block window entries. If you stand in front of a window and someone tries to rappel in, they'll bounce off your shield. Now, they can melee the shield still, but the melee range when you're on a window is a bit shorter than the melee range than the melee range when you're walking around. So they have to be quite close to you. They're going to be exposing themselves when they're doing this, and they're not necessarily going to be able to capitalize on it. So if you're at the very end of a round and someone's stuck and they have to come through a window, you can stand there and completely deny their entry, because they will just bounce off your shield. Very funny when it happens. Know when to use your gun and when to use your shield. When you're moving into a situation, try and assess how many people are there, assess, you know, how many teammates do I have left, where are they, and then decide whether or not it's time to shock or whether or not it's time to shoot. Because if you're walking in and you've got your shield out but you really needed your gun, you're not necessarily going to get the opportunity to switch. If you do have to switch, there's 2 things that you want to do. You either want to get into cover, break line of sight with the enemy and then swap, and you want to not hesitate when you're doing this. You want to do it as soon as possible to reduce the chance of them coming around the corner whilst you're still in the animation. And the other thing you might want to do, which is a bit more of a dodgy one, but it can work, is to swap in their face and basically turn right, so that when you put your shield away, you're putting away the shield on the left side of your body. So you want to turn right, or I believe so, it might be on the right. Whichever side it is that you put it away, you want to turn opposite that direction so that the shield is still covering you partially as you put it away, and then you want to put your back to them, and you want to basically absorb the shots into the shield on your back, and then once they've either used all their shots or you're feeling confident enough to whip around, you can try and engage them with your primary weapon. This is not always going to work. The vast majority of the time it's probably not going to work, but it's as good as you can get in situations like that, because otherwise you're just swapping in their face and you're guaranteed to die unless they're brain dead. And the last little tip I would have for you for Clash is an important one that you've probably seen a lot of Clash players do. If you get meleeed, if you get stunned, if you get shot with Callie's thing, there's one thing and one thing only that you can do to save yourself other than retreat, and that is to turn to your left. The reason you turn to your left is because when you get meleeed, the shield is knocked to your right. So if you're turning, that gives you a chance to instead keep the shield covering you on the side that you're otherwise vulnerable. So it's not perfect, you're still exposed slightly, but it's more likely to keep you alive than doing nothing. So turn to your left, get that shield in front of your body, and then as soon as you see the shield start to come back in front of you, that's when you want to turn back and face them so that you've got full frontal coverage. This won't always save you, but it will do better than for you to just stand there with your body completely exposed as your arms are flailing around. So keep that in mind. And just remember, guys, Clash is not always going to be the best option. Like any operator, it's better to think about what map you're on, what situation you're dealing with, and also the composition that the enemy team is bringing. If they're bringing a rogues gallery of all your counters, it's time to leave her at home. If they're not, and if it's in the right place where you can get good movement, and you have choke points that you can kind of bully people on, by all means, go for it and enjoy her. Have a good time. Best of luck. Hope you enjoy playing Clash. And I'll see you next week. Do swidania, everybody. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.